In a forgotten pocket of the world, far from the reach of cities and streetlights, existed a small, crumbling village where dreams came to die quietly. The roads were nothing more than narrow, cracked dirt paths, and the only sounds that echoed through its wind-worn houses were those of animals' labor and tired sighs. Among these tired souls lived a boy named Elian, born not just into poverty, but into a place where even hope was seen as a luxury. The sun would rise over the hills each day, but it barely reached the hearts of those who lived below. Children played not with toys but with empty cans and dusty sticks. The school was a broken structure, its roof leaked, its walls peeled, and the only blackboard was now more white with scratches than black with chalk. Teachers showed up when they felt like it, and most boys Elian's age had already dropped out, choosing instead to earn a few coins in the fields or as laborers in the town nearby. Elian's father, once a proud farmer, had fallen into a spiral of debt after a drought took everything. He now sat silently under the neem tree outside their mud house, a shell of a man who had lost not just his land but his will. His mother, tired yet relentless, would sew torn clothes and cook whatever little they had, all while hiding her tears behind half-smiles. Their house had no electricity, no running water, and barely any furniture, just 3 mats, a cracked stove, and a shelf filled with old books given by a teacher who had left the village long ago. Those books became Elian's secret world. At night, under the dim flicker of a kerosene lamp while the rest of the village slept, he would lie on the floor and read them slowly, holding each page like it was treasure. He didn't always understand the words, but he felt their power. Each paragraph whispered something bigger, something brighter, like sunlight speaking to him through the paper. Elian wasn't the smartest boy in school, nor the fastest, nor the most confident. In fact, he was often bullied for wearing the same clothes every day, for bringing no lunch to school, and for always carrying a tattered book. But inside him was something the bullies couldn't reach, a stubborn fire that said, "This can't be it. Life must have more." One day, during a school lesson about the solar system, the teacher said, "The sun always rises, no matter how dark the night." That sentence struck Elian like lightning. It stayed with him for days, echoing in his mind like a calling. From that moment on, he made a vow. He would chase the sun, not just the star in the sky, but the meaning behind it. He would rise, no matter how dark his world was. Days turned into months, and Elian's hunger to learn grew fiercer than ever, but learning doesn't come cheap in a world where even meals are a struggle. One afternoon, after returning from school with torn sandals and a bruised cheek from being pushed into the mud by older boys, Elian entered his home to find his mother sobbing quietly. The sewing machine, her only source of income, had broken beyond repair. His father sat motionless, staring at the ground like he was waiting for it to swallow him whole. There was no dinner that night, just silence and hunger. Elian didn't sleep. He watched the moonlight crawl across the mud floor and thought, "If I don't fight now, this will be my forever." The next morning, he left before sunrise and walked to the nearby town barefoot, asking shop to shop if they needed help. Most turned him away. He was too small, too weak, but a kind old bookseller, noticing the intensity in the boy's eyes, agreed to let him sweep the floor and run errands. In return, he gave him 2 coins a day and 1 book every week. Elian's world lit up. Every evening, after helping his mother with chores, he would light the kerosene lamp and dive into those books, sometimes falling asleep with a page stuck to his cheek. Days were long. He would wake at dawn, work, go to school, and return to sweep the bookstore. Then home, homework, helping his mother, and reading late into the night. His body ached. He often fell asleep standing. His eyes burned and he barely spoke anymore. But inside, something was changing. He no longer dreamed of escaping his village. He dreamed of transforming it. He started teaching 2 younger boys after school under a tree. They sat on rocks while he drew letters in the dirt with a stick. At first, people laughed. "Teacher boy," they called him mockingly, but slowly other kids joined. Parents noticed. They stopped laughing. One day, the school announced a regional exam, a scholarship opportunity that could take a student to the city for advanced education. Everyone dismissed it. "No one from our village has ever won," said even the headmaster. But Elian quietly registered his name. The exam date was 2 months away. He studied every single day, memorizing pages while carrying water pots, solving math problems while stacking books at the store, and reciting English sentences to himself while walking home at night. He didn't just want to pass, he wanted to prove that light could rise from darkness. The night before the exam, rain flooded the village. His books got soaked, the roads turned to mud, and still he left at 4:00 a.m., walked 6 kilometers through flooded fields, and reached the exam center, wet, shivering, but ready. He sat in a room full of clean, confident kids in polished uniforms, and for a moment fear gripped him. But then he remembered the neem tree, the kerosene lamp, his mother's worn hands, and the promise he made to the sun, his fingers steady. His mind cleared. He wrote like his life depended on it, because it did. 3 weeks passed after the exam, and each day felt heavier than the last. Elian continued sweeping the bookshop and teaching under the neem tree, but inside him a storm brewed, a mixture of hope, fear, and impatience. He didn't tell anyone he had taken the exam, not even his mother. He didn't want to raise hope where there had only ever been disappointment. Then one hot afternoon, a man from the district office arrived at the village school on a motorcycle, holding a list. The entire village gathered out of curiosity. Names were called, prizes announced, then silence. One final name remained on the paper, The man cleared his throat, then read, Alian Seed, first position, district topper, full scholarship, boarding, books, uniform, and travel, all covered. Report to the city school within 10 days. For a moment no one moved. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then whispers turned into gasps, gasps into cheers, and cheers into stunned silence. Alian stood at the edge of the crowd, eyes wide, hands trembling. The headmaster looked at him with disbelief. You topped the district. Alian only nodded once, his throat tight. He wanted to smile, to scream with joy, but something inside him whispered, this isn't the end, it's just the start. The next week was a whirlwind. Villagers who had once mocked him now came with folded hands, offering blessings and old shoes. The shopkeeper gifted him a new bag. The headmaster gave him a new notebook. But amidst the joy, a shadow loomed. His father's health had worsened. The stress, the years of silent suffering, and the shock of Alian's success had taken a toll. He now lay on a chart, coughing blood, barely speaking. One night, Alian sat by his side and whispered, Abu, I got the scholarship. I'm going to the city, I'll change our life. His father opened his eyes weakly, managed a half smile, and said, Beta, even the sun has to burn to give light. Go burn bright. Those were his last words. He passed away that night. The morning of Alian's departure was heavy. His mother packed his few belongings in silence. There were no grand goodbyes, just a long, tight hug and a tear-streaked face that whispered, Go make your father proud. Alian walked to the bus stop with the entire village watching. Some clapped, some cried, and some stood silent, unable to believe what they were witnessing, a boy from nowhere leaving to chase the sun. As the bus rolled through hills and fields, Alian looked out the window and watched the rising sun paint the sky. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, he only whispered one sentence under his breath. This pain, this loss, I'll turn it into light. That was the day Alian left the village, but the village never left him. The city roared with 1,000 sounds Alian had never heard before: honking cars, flashing billboards, polished shoes clacking on pavement, and voices that spoke faster than thoughts. His new school was massive, towering white buildings, glass classrooms, digital blackboards, and students who wore perfume, not dust. Alian stood out like a mud stain on clean marble. His uniform was too loose, his accent too raw, and his silence too loud. The other students didn't understand his hunger. They saw his village manners and laughed behind his back. His teachers praised his previous score, but in the daily grind of advanced lessons, Alian began to drown. He started failing subjects. He couldn't keep up with English speeches or complex science projects. At night in his hostel bed, he would stare at the ceiling, missing his mother's quiet presence, his father's tired smile, and the neem tree where he once taught children who looked up to him. Here he was invisible, alone. He almost gave up. One day, standing in the hallway with a failed math test in hand and whispers echoing in his ears, he clenched his fists so hard they trembled. Maybe I don't belong here, he thought. But that night, sitting alone in the library, he came across a line in an old book. The brightest stars are forged in the deepest darkness. That line hit something ancient and raw in his heart. He thought of the rain, the kerosene lamp, the mud, his mother's fingers bleeding from stitching clothes, and his father's final words, burn bright. He didn't sleep that night. He made a plan. He started waking up 2 hours earlier than anyone else. He would study the basics again from scratch, teach himself like he did back home. He made flashcards. He watched online lectures in broken internet cafes. He asked for help without shame. He stopped fearing failure because failure had been his childhood friend. Weeks passed. Slowly, teachers noticed, then classmates. His grades began rising. He joined the debate team, and though his accent still stumbled, his words carried weight. At a science fair, he built a solar-powered irrigation model inspired by the broken pump in his village. It won second prize and, more importantly, respect. By the final year, Alian wasn't just passing, he was leading. He delivered the school's farewell speech, standing in front of hundreds, speaking with fire in his voice and tears in his eyes. I come from a place where light was a dream, but today I realize the sun rises for everyone, we just have to walk far enough. Years later, Alian returned to his village, but this time not with torn sandals, with a degree, a plan, and purpose. He didn't buy a car, he built a school. He installed solar panels, started free evening classes for children, and trained teachers. People who once laughed at him now looked up to him with respect. A mural was painted on the school wall, a boy walking barefoot under a rising sun. Below it were the words, "The boy who chased sunlight and became it." As he stood under the neem tree, now grown taller and stronger, with children laughing beneath its shade, Alian smiled, not because he had escaped the darkness, but because he had lit the way for others still lost in it. And that right there was the end of his chase. Because he had become